get started. I'm going to share my screen. I made slides today, which I don't usually do, but I was feeling creative. Figure out how to share them though. Okay, so happy Supermoon. I'm so excited. Hold on, let me get the chat screen open. Awesome. Yay. Okay, so supermoons are really cool. I actually had a friend yesterday be like, doesn't it just mean that they appear closer? And it is that the moon's orbit is closer to the Earth. So I think of these as moon phases that kind of amplify the energy of whatever's going on astrologically. So obviously, I think everyone present knows that full moons are great for manifesting and releasing what's no longer serving us. So this is kind of just like a supercharged energy to work with. I am planning on doing kind of an elaborate ritual and reviewing the last 6 months, and then kind of future pacing for the next 6 months. I'm also doing this because the Lionsgate portal is on the 8th, and the Lionsgate portal is a really awesome opportunity for manifestation. It's like Sirius and Chiron are in alignment with the sun, and you should look this up because it's super interesting. But like some of the pyramids in Egypt are aligned with this portal. I think there's something in South America that was built in order to line up with this portal when it happens, to have like the star light like shine through windows and stuff. It's a really, really spiritual day of the year. And it's traditionally known as like this manifestation portal for just like inviting things into your life. We also have a new moon in Leo on the 16th, which is Leo energy is all about being bold and courageous and like taking control of your life and being the main character of your life. And then we have another super moon. This is the only month of the year with 2 supermoons in Pisces on the 30th. And I'm biased because I'm a Pisces, but Pisces energy is all about being the visionary of your life and believing in what's possible for you, and really like allowing yourself to dream big and letting go of the fear of like being seen and creating really big things in your life. So we have this series of moon cycles that if harnessed, I think can just be a really wonderful framework for doubling down on being intentional. If you've been around my content for a while, I definitely take like a woo-woo and more practical side of things. And I think that one reason why incorporating rituals into your life with the moon cycles is so powerful is just that intentionality of like being able to review and reevaluate continuously. Sometimes we set goals and we don't look at them for 6 months. Like we set a goal to do something, and 6 months from now, then we get there, we're like, oh shoot, I like kind of forgot that I set that goal, or I got completely off course and I didn't even realize it. And so I think that moon cycles are such a powerful way to check in with yourself regularly and really work on releasing and receiving and releasing and receiving. Called out. Oh, me too. I mean, this is why I've adopted this practice, because I used to be notorious for like, I'd get so fired up for like the new year and New Year's resolutions. And then 6 months would go by and I'd be like, I didn't even touch any of those goals. So I've just found it to be so supportive to have like, I have a journal that is only for moon cycle manifesting. And that way I can just open it up where I left off at the last moon cycle, read what was going on, kind of reevaluate like, hey, did any of those things happen? Was I like as intentional as I would like to be? Sometimes I have to reset the same manifestation goals because I didn't have time or I didn't prioritize it, but it just really keeps you on top of it. So full moons are meant for releasing what's no longer serving you to make room for what you desire to welcome into your life. Something that I think is so cool about this practice is the energetic understanding of like, we only have so much energy in our field to work with. And so really understanding that, my friend likes to call it sacred subtraction. And I love this saying because when you let something go in your life, it makes room for something else. And if you're intentional about it, then you can invite something in its place that is in better alignment with who you are. It's like I've had clients who like have lost jobs and they've been really upset about it at first. And then they realize like, oh, wow, this actually like ended up leading me to a job that was a way better fit for me. So just noticing little things like that the universe is always working for you, can be really powerful with the practice of letting things go in order to invite new things in. Because this supermoon is in Aquarius, we're obviously talking about authenticity today. Aquarius is like this powerhouse of authenticity. They're just like super eccentric, very unique. They challenge the status quo. They think beyond the box. They really stand up for what they believe in. But they're deeply altruistic and compassionate. So like, this isn't the energy that you see online all the time of like, fuck what everybody thinks, like, yay, moon sign. I think there's a lot of messages that just don't have any nuance around like I just don't care what anyone thinks anymore. And it's like, that's cool, like whatever, if that works for you, that's great. But I think that a better energy maybe to explore, if this resonates for you, is caring deeply about the people who care about you. Like, if my good friends came to me and were like, hey, Court, you've really been like a pill lately, like you haven't been fun to be around, I would be like taking that really seriously. Like I would care deeply about what their perception of me and how my energy is affecting them. But if some random person on the internet comments on one of my posts and is like, has all these opinions, then I can't like let that take over my energy. I can't do that anymore. I used to, which I'll get into in a second. But what this does is, in the same vein of releasing what doesn't serve us, it helps us, hold on, I'm gonna make sure. Okay, just make sure if Julie comes late, I can see it. So this energy is like being able to let go of anything holding you back in the realm of authenticity is what we're going to be talking about today, to help you set some supermoon goals around being able to step more deeply into your authentic self. And honestly, like, I don't know if this work ever ends. Like, there's definitely times where I'm challenged to look at my own behavior more and be like, oh, wow, like I have control over the way that I show up in my relationships to be more authentic, in order to squash any like misunderstandings or frustrations or whatever. And I'll talk about that too in a second. But so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the power of authenticity and how to start being more authentic and how to kind of let go of what other people think is going to be a big theme. As always, it might be easier today to drop questions in the chat, just because I can't see what's going on because my whole screen is the presentation and my notes. So if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I'll be able to see them. Okay. I have too many screens open. Okay, so this is a quote that I found on Masterclass, but I thought that it like really summed up what being authentic is. So I'm going to read a couple quotes for y'all to just kind of, I just feel like these explained it really well, and they're really good explanations of what authenticity is. So authenticity refers to the quality of being true to yourself and your beliefs. Being authentic means acting in alignment with your inner values and character, rather than allowing your adaptive self, the behavioral drive to fit in with other human beings like friends, family, and coworkers, to dictate everything you do. Authentic people won't try to be like anyone else or hold back their honest opinions. Instead, instead of engaging in people-pleasing behaviors, an authentic person's actions, thoughts, and intentions align with who they are. And then some other quotes that I really loved were obviously from my favorite person ever, Brene Brown. Authenticity is a collection of choices we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. To be authentic, we must cultivate the courage to be imperfect and vulnerable. We have to believe that we are fundamentally worthy of love and acceptance just as we are. I've learned that there is no better way to invite more grace, gratitude, and joy into our lives than by mindfully practicing authenticity. Vulnerability is the willingness to show up and be seen with no guarantee of the outcome. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just love her definitions of these because it does take vulnerability. I think that's one reason why so many people hide themselves from the world, is that it does take courage. It can be scary. And I'm going to talk about why, so that we can understand that it's not our fault that we have a tendency to abandon ourselves. So, it truly does have an impact on your well-being. Studies have shown that authenticity is a core emotional need, especially in childhood. So that's where I'm going to start is, in childhood, there's different stages of development. And one of the important ones is authenticity. And so this is a spectrum, obviously. Like, I'm speaking from my experience that was very extreme, but I'm under the belief that anyone that was stifled really at all in this realm, even if it wasn't until later in life and it was like, maybe in college or your first job out of college, and you were in an environment where you just couldn't be yourself and you couldn't express yourself and you couldn't have opinions, like really at any stage, if you had this experience of not feeling safe being authentically expressed, it starts to wreak havoc on your nervous system, because we are wired for authentic connection. I know y'all both have heard me talk about this before, but for thousands of years, we've needed the acceptance of the group to survive. So when we lived in tribes, if we were ostracized or outcast, we likely wouldn't survive on our own. And so it was very serious to be accepted. And the funny part is that studies have shown that cultures used to be much more accepting of people's ways of being, because we all kind of like worked together and needed each other. One of my favorite things is learning about, like Two-Spirit celebration in Native American cultures, and like these things that are really not accepted now that have been historically very accepted in different cultures. And so what happens is we have this tendency to people please because that part of our development was stifled in some way. We were taught that it wasn't safe to be authentically expressed. And unfortunately, this, if you think about it, is just kind of like more the norm, I think, than not, because past generations weren't allowed to be authentically expressed. They were like in survival mode. Like they just needed to, like kids didn't have a role in the home that was like, oh yeah, like play and be creative and be yourself. It was like, be quiet and I don't want to hear you because I have to figure out how to survive or whatever. So this is definitely like a generational thing. And I feel really lucky that even though I had a childhood that was awful because of this in a lot of ways, I'm able to do this work because it's becoming more and more known and talked about that this is an important thing. So essentially, because of this need for authenticity in our nervous system, it manifests as walking on eggshells, masking, performing, being scared to speak up for yourself and have opinions. And they've done studies too that like even in Zoom meetings at work, people's blood pressure and heart rate like goes through the roof because they're performing. Like you have to like be a certain way at work. And while I do think that there are nuances to this, like I think that in certain situations, society would maybe, like, I don't know, but maybe be more chaotic if we didn't have certain rules and expectations in place. So like, obviously it can serve a purpose to have different sides of yourself that you show in different situations. I think that that's important to talk about. There's certain environments or, things that like, it's okay to kind of have a certain mask or performance to a degree. But I think in general, it's really important to understand that, especially with like your closest friends and hopefully family members, that's not always possible, but as much as possible, you have like a safe space to be authentically expressed. And I think also if you are someone that's trying to start a business or become a creator online or just show your face in any way to like make change or make a difference, it can be important to understand how much authenticity actually like makes people respect you and trust you, and then learning how to work with that. Um, okay. So because it's a fundamental developmental need in childhood, I always ask the question of like, why would this be any different in adulthood? You know, like, um, if it's recognized that this is a fundamental part of being able to emotionally develop, why wouldn't that be honored going forward in our society? Like, it's so strange to me. Um, so becoming people pleasers, masters at abandoning ourselves to meet the needs of others. And that's just kind of like how your nervous system maladapts to this uh, irony of like seeking approval from someone who's not approving of you. You know, it's really interesting actually, if you think about it, because it's like you're not being accepted for your authentic self. And then our nature is to completely change and adapt in order to emotionally survive, essentially. And then we abandon ourselves and we wake up and we're like, oh my God, this is really stressful. Why do I do this? And so, you know, I come from the place of like so much compassion for people who have had this experience, because my story or whatever was like very extreme, and I didn't wake up to this until like my late 20s, maybe even early 30s, of, oh wow, this wasn't a normal childhood experience. Like I was like dressed up like a doll, I couldn't have opinions, I couldn't like play a sport that I wanted to play, like everything was controlled by my caretaker. And what this did was it created fear, like actual fear of expressing myself authentically. And so I just did everything I could to fit in. I never had an opinion. I said yes to everything. And then this turned into really, really negative coping strategies like substance abuse in order to get relief from the chronic stress and anxiety and pain that I was feeling, not being able to be myself. And when I stopped drinking, I remember laying on my bed and staring at the ceiling and being like, I don't know who I am. Like, I have no idea what I like, what I don't like. I remembered in childhood that I loved making art and I loved reading. So that's what I started doing. I started drawing and reading again more. But it really blew my mind because I had no sense of self. And then I started kind of noticing that, you know, I would sit through my friends being super judgmental and I wouldn't say anything, or making weird comments that were not appropriate or that I didn't agree with, and I just would be quiet. And it started to really eat at me that I was putting myself in those positions. And before I was just drinking with my friends, so I like didn't have to look at all that stuff. I was just like checked out. And so what this ended up like creating in my life was this, I think it was like a couple steps. Like I started speaking up for myself more. It didn't really go over well. And then I started having to remove people and things from my life that made me feel like I had to abandon myself. And so it was really lonely for a while. And that's one reason why I'm passionate about like creating these spaces where people can support each other and have other people on the same path, is because it was really lonely for an interim period where I was trying to figure out like, okay, how do I attract people into my life that are going to honor my authenticity? And at the time I didn't have language for that. I didn't really know what was going on. And so once I kind of was able to move through this and master it, I realized like the implications that are so actually dire for most people of not being authentic. Being yourself actually ends up it helps you find out who deserves to know you for the real you. You find out that it's not really rejection when people don't like you if you're abandoning yourself, because they never knew you. Like that wasn't who you were. So if you're yourself and they don't like you, it's like at least you can direct your attention to people that do like you for the real you. Okay. And another piece of this was like, I know that for me with starting a business, I had to overcome the fear of what random people on the internet thought, because, you know, like Instagram at first, when I first started, was all like high school people following me, or like people that I wasn't in touch with anymore, I hadn't seen in years. And I would sit there with my phone open and I would stare at it with the camera and I would be like, okay, just do it. Just make a video, just go. And it would be like hours. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. And I would feel completely paralyzed because it was so scary to imagine, oh, they're going to pick apart my, like my, I don't know, my hair or how I'm talking, or they're going to think I'm full of it, or whatever these things are. And then I had a mentor who explained to me, like, you're just procrastinating on what's possible for you by doing this, because you're going to let all this time go by based on these stories that a lot of people probably aren't even judging us, you know, like most people are thinking about themselves. And the people who are judging don't deserve our energy. And so being more authentic, my point is, being more authentic and being willing to show up helps you collapse time on your goals, because you're actually showing up in alignment with what you desire to create in your life, instead of, you know, wasting a lot of time like saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to, and dilly-dallying around standing up for yourself, and all of these things that I'm about to talk about a little bit more in detail. Kind of just went on a tangent. Okay, so obviously Shakespeare quote, you know, cheesy, had to do it. But this also takes a level of radical honesty. I always say that, you know, I didn't make this up, I saw it somewhere, but it really is true that people can only change to the degree that they're willing to be honest with themselves. And so authenticity really takes honesty with yourself and with others. This is how you build meaningful relationships that reciprocate curiosity and openness and really honor who you are. And, you know, figuring out who you are can be really difficult, honestly. We're kind of like this culmination of experiences and things that have been kind of like implanted onto us throughout our lives. And so I'm going to talk a little bit at the end of this workshop about how to start peeling back those layers and like really getting to know yourself more deeply. But I think focusing on the benefits at first can be such a great way to feel motivated to do the work necessary in order to show up more authentically. And this is also, you know, there's studies that talk about this a lot, especially with our nervous system, that having spaces in your life to feel safe being authentically expressed really relieves stress. It's very good for our mental health and our well-being. You kind of automatically stop caring what other people think so much because you have the support of people that really get you. So it's like you're able to be like, oh, well, I have these people that have my back and are curious about me and want me to grow and change and evolve. And so I don't have to have the approval of these other people because my survival doesn't depend on it. Like coming back to the evolutionary state, like that's what I always think about, is like my survival doesn't depend on the random 100 people that I used to worry about. It depends on these core people in my life that matter a lot. And so I'll just redirect my energy towards that whenever I start to worry about what people think. This also just frees up so much headspace. Like when you're not people pleasing and performing and trying to be something that you're not, it helps you have space to pursue your goals and think about creative things and projects and be resourceful. And it just kind of allows you to rechannel your energy toward the things that really matter in your life. You trust yourself more. It's a big side effect, if you will, of authenticity. We'll talk about that more in a second, but really learning how to live in your values builds your self-esteem. It helps you trust your decisions, and you'll seek less external validation as a result. You'll find more joy in your experiences because I know this to be true. Like I used to go to brunch all the time. I hate going to brunch. Like I love people that love brunch. I hate brunch. And I woke up one day after I stopped drinking, and I had, you know, I used to drink at brunch. So I kept going to brunch after I stopped drinking. And one day I was like, I do not want to do this anymore. Like it feels like such a, you know, and maybe it was the people I was with. I don't know. Like a lot of it was many factors, but and I remember it was scary. It was literally scary. I sat there with my heart racing, sending the text to be like, I won't be making it to brunch this week. And I thought it was going to be like this huge thing. And obviously it wasn't that big of a deal. It ended up leading one thing to the next of that friend group wasn't really for me and whatnot. But like, it's just so fascinating how I just never said no, because not only was I scared to say no, but I didn't know how much I didn't like it because I wasn't in touch with myself. And so it can be this really interesting experience of like checking in with yourself and calibrating yourself to, this is something I go through my one-on-one clients with actually, is being able to calibrate to your wholehearted yes and your wholehearted no. And you can do this with really simple things, like things that you know are a yes or a no in your life, that you have no issue saying yes and no to. And sit there and ask yourself the question of like, do I want to go to brunch? And I'm like, no, easy, no, that's easy. And I feel it in my body and I calibrate to that. And that way, when you have another thing come in, you'll know how it feels in your body. Even if your automatic response is yes, because of the people pleasing, you'll feel it in your body and you'll be like, oh, actually, this is a no. So that's like a really great practice.